8 ruthless rules smart people use to stay ahead. Machiavelli imagined you're playing a game where everyone else is pretending they're not playing. That's life. And if you want to win, not just survive, but thrive, you need to understand the rules that no one talks about. The ones that are buried beneath politeness, beneath smiling masks, beneath the illusion that everyone's trying to be good. Niccolo Machiavelli saw through that illusion. He didn't invent ruthlessness, he just pointed it out. He didn't corrupt people, he simply described what power looks like when the filters are removed. And whether we like it or not, the world still runs on the principles he exposed. So if you're smart, and I know you are, you don't dismiss his ideas as cold or outdated. You study them. You extract the value. You learn to play the game better. Because here's the truth. Most people are reacting to life. They're being moved like pieces on a board. They think being good means being passive, agreeable, harmless. But smart people, truly strategic minds, know that staying ahead requires a different kind of intelligence. One that blends emotional awareness with cold logic. One that knows when to be kind and when to be formidable. And that's what this video is about. We're going deep into 8 ruthless, unspoken rules that the sharpest minds use to stay ahead. Not to manipulate or dominate, but to navigate a world that's already filled with manipulation and domination. These aren't tricks, they're truths. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. Let's start with the first rule. People don't see reality, they see stories. Machiavelli understood this before psychology had a name. People don't respond to facts, they respond to narratives. And if you don't shape your own, someone else will do it for you. Your reputation is a currency, and it doesn't matter what's true, it matters what people believe is true. That's why perception is power. You could be the most talented person in the room, but if you appear uncertain, weak, or inconsistent, you lose influence. So the smart move is not to fake it, but to curate how you show up. Speak with precision, maintain mystery, deliver results before excuses. Because in a world of noise, clarity is control. The second rule, never let morality be a substitute for strategy. This one stings. We all want to be good people, but good intentions without strategic thinking create victims. Machiavelli never said be evil, he said, don't confuse being nice with being effective. There's a time for compassion and a time for calculation. If you're always giving, always pleasing, always avoiding confrontation, you become a tool for someone else's ambition. The key is balance. Know your values, but also know the game. Be generous but not gullible. Be kind but not naive. Because the world respects strength disguised as virtue, not virtue without strength.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Third rule, control information or be controlled by it. Power flows to those who control the narrative. Machiavelli knew that if you reveal too much too soon, you give people weapons they can use against you. So smart people practice strategic silence. They listen more than they speak. They observe before acting. They never show all their cards. And when they do speak, it's intentional. Every word is either a signal or a shield. Ask yourself, do you talk to express or to impress? Do you share because it builds trust or because you crave validation? The moment you start leaking your plans is the moment you start losing your advantage. Now let's talk about the fourth rule. Make your moves before you're forced to. Most people wait until crisis hits to act, but smart people anticipate. They don't just react, they pre-act. They study patterns. They read people. They ask, what's the move before the move? Machiavelli pointed out that fortune favors the prepared, not the passive. If you want to stay ahead, you don't wait for opportunities, you create them. You don't wait for betrayal, you sense it coming. That doesn't mean you live in paranoia. It means you stay awake. You build leverage before you need it. You build alliances before conflict arises. You think 5 moves ahead because if you're playing checkers in a chess world, you've already lost. And here's a question to sit with. Are you living your life on offense or defense? Are you initiating the moves or constantly recovering from them? Because if you're always reacting, you're not leading, you're surviving. And survival isn't the goal of the smart. Assent is. The fifth rule, and this one is brutal. Use people's desires, not their logic. Machiavelli knew that people are not moved by reason. They're moved by fear, hope, pride, lust, ambition. And if you want to lead, influence, or even protect yourself, you have to understand what drives others at their core. Smart people don't manipulate, they leverage. They speak to what people want, not what they should want. That's why salespeople sell dreams, not products. That's why politicians sell safety, not policies. If you try to win people over with pure logic, you'll often be ignored. But if you speak to their desire, then their logic follows. This doesn't mean you become a liar. It means you become a mirror reflecting back what people already believe and guiding them to where they need to go. So ask yourself, what do people around you really want? Not what they say, what they show. Because once you see what motivates someone, you understand how to work with them or protect yourself from them. We've covered 5 rules so far, and we're only scratching the surface. These principles aren't about becoming someone you're not. They're about removing the blindfold, seeing life as it is, not as we wish it to be. That's what Machiavelli gives us. Not a map to be cruel, but a lens to be clear. Because in a world full of illusions, clarity is the sharpest weapon. The art of the mask, how powerful people use identity to win without fighting. Let's face it, most of us are wearing masks. You might think you're being authentic, but authenticity itself is often just another mask we've learned to present, one that fits well in social circles, gains approval, or keeps us safe. Machiavelli didn't just understand this, he relied on it. He knew that identity is a weapon. And not just the identity given to you by birth, race, class, or culture, but the one you choose to wear. Smart people, those who play the long game, understand that to win without resistance, you don't need to overpower others, you need them to believe in the version of you that serves your goals best. The most powerful people aren't the loudest or the most forceful. They're the ones who use perception like an artist uses color. They craft an image so skillfully that others move aside willingly, never even realizing a battle was won. This, Machiavelli would argue, is the silent genius of power. You don't need to dominate if you can disarm. If people think you're harmless, they won't see you coming. If they think you're loyal, they won't prepare for betrayal. If they think you're simple, they'll underestimate your complexity. And that's your edge. The mask becomes your shield and your sword. The goal is not to lie. It's to understand that identity is fluid and every situation demands a different version of you. Those who cling rigidly to being themselves often fail to adapt. But those who master the art of the mask can walk through fire and never be burned. Let's go deeper. Why do masks work? Because humans are wired to fill in the blanks. We crave certainty, and we tend to believe what we see over what we don't. If you appear calm, people assume you're in control. If you act confident, they believe you know something they don't. We project authority, innocence, danger, or weakness not just through words, but through presence. And once a perception is set, it becomes incredibly hard to undo. That's why the smart rarely waste time defending themselves. They shape the narrative early. They play characters that make them indispensable or invisible depending on what the moment requires. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to glide through conflict untouched? How they rarely get blamed even when involved? How they always seem to be in the right place at the right time, saying just enough but never too much? That's not luck. That's mastery of image. They've learned that when you control how others see you, you don't need to fight as hard to get what you want. You don't need to raise your voice when your silence already speaks volumes. You don't need to argue when your reputation closes doors before words are even exchanged. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. If you don't craft your image, someone else will do it for you. And chances are, they won't be kind. We live in a world of assumptions, projections, and snap judgments. Your silence can be misread as weakness, your kindness as softness, your vulnerability as incompetence. People don't always see who you are, they see who you appear to be. So the question isn't whether you wear a mask. The question is, are you choosing the mask or is it choosing you? Machiavelli taught that the prince must appear generous even if he's calculating. He must appear merciful even if he's ruthless. The appearance matters more than the substance because perception is influence, and influence is power. Today we might not be ruling kingdoms, but we're still playing the same game. In business, in relationships, in social circles, your image is either your ally or your liability. Smart people don't leave it to chance. They design it, they test it, they refine it, until the mask becomes a mirror reflecting exactly what others want to see, while protecting what they never need to know. But this raises a profound question. Can we wear a mask and still be authentic? Isn't this manipulation? Isn't it dishonest? The answer is not simple. It depends on your intention. If you wear the mask to deceive for selfish gain, yes, it becomes corruption. But if you wear it to navigate complex terrain, to protect your essence, to serve a greater vision that's not manipulation, that's wisdom. In a world that often punishes raw truth, the mask becomes a tool for surviving with your integrity intact. It's not about hiding, it's about choosing what to reveal. So here's your challenge. Look at your life. What mask are you wearing right now? Is it helping you win? Or is it keeping you small? Are you adapting fluidly or clinging stubbornly to a static identity? Because the people who stay ahead are not the ones who cling to who they were. They are the ones who become who they need to be again and again without ever losing the essence of who they truly are. That is the paradox. That is the art. To appear flexible while remaining unbreakable. To play many roles while staying true to your mission. To win without ever needing to fight. Mastering the battlefield. Why power is never given, only taken. In every room you walk into, there is a silent struggle playing out beneath the surface, a contest for attention, for influence, for direction. And here's the truth we often try to ignore. Power is never handed out freely. It's not a gift. It's not a reward for being good, kind, or deserving. Power is taken. It is claimed by those who have the courage to see the world as it is, not as they wish it to be. Machiavelli understood this with brutal clarity. In his world and ours, those who rise do so not because they are chosen, but because they choose themselves. They step forward when others hesitate. They act when others wait for permission. And in doing so, they reshape the battlefield around them. Think about it. How many times have we waited to be noticed, to be promoted, to be invited in? How often have we told ourselves that patience is a virtue while the world moves on without us? That if we just keep working hard, someone will eventually see our value. But Machiavelli would ask you, what if no one is coming? What if the gatekeepers are asleep? Or worse, what if they see your value and hope you never see it yourself? Power doesn't flow to those who wait. It flows to those who act, not recklessly but decisively. Not arrogantly but with strategic intent. To master the battlefield, you must first recognize where the battlefield is. It's not always a physical space. Often, it's psychological. It's a boardroom, a conversation, a negotiation, a moment of tension between silence and speech. Every interaction is a potential game of influence, and the stakes are rarely equal. Smart people understand where the leverage is. They don't waste energy fighting battles they can't win. They choose their battles. They know when to press and when to pull back. They understand that timing is everything. Sometimes a delay is more powerful than a declaration. Now here's something most people miss. Power doesn't always look like control. In fact, some of the most powerful individuals appear passive until the moment of impact. They don't dominate every conversation. They don't chase attention. They observe. They withhold. They create mystery by being just slightly out of reach. And when they speak, people listen not because they're loud, but because they've built the gravity that makes their words matter. That's power. It's quiet. It's deliberate. It's earned not through force, but through positioning. And let's not pretend this is easy. To take power requires discomfort. It requires you to risk being misunderstood, challenged, even disliked. But ask yourself, is being liked more important than being respected? because those two are not always the same. The powerful often walk a lonely road, not because they are cruel, but because they refuse to shrink. They refuse to conform to the expectations that keep others small. They're willing to be judged because they're playing a longer game, one that doesn't end in applause but in impact. Machiavelli was hated by many, feared by more, and understood by few. But he didn't care for approval, he cared for effectiveness. He knew that leadership is not about pleasing everyone. It's about making hard decisions when others are paralyzed by fear. It's about seeing beyond today's comfort to tomorrow's consequences. And yes, it's about taking the reins before someone else decides where your life should go. But here's where the deeper wisdom lies. Power, once taken, must be sustained, and that requires discipline. The battlefield is littered with those who rose fast and fell faster because they mistook attention for loyalty, fear for respect, or ambition for wisdom. Smart people don't just climb, they fortify. They build alliances, not dependencies. They invest in perception, not just performance. They remain students of the game, even when they're winning, because the moment you stop adapting is the moment you become predictable. And the predictable are always the first to fall. So ask yourself right now, where in your life are you waiting for permission? Who are you silently hoping will validate your worth? Open a door, offer an opportunity. And what would happen if you stopped waiting and started moving? Because the battlefield doesn't care about your intentions. It only respects your action. And power, real power, belongs to those who are willing to walk into the unknown and say, I will not be given a crown, I will earn it. The final rule: how ruthless wisdom creates unshakable freedom. There comes a moment in the life of every thinking person where the pursuit of power, strategy, influence, all of it collides with something deeper. You realize that none of it matters if you are not free. And this is where most people misunderstand Machiavelli. They think he was obsessed with control for control's sake. But look closer. What he truly sought, what every smart, strategic person ultimately seeks, is freedom. The ability to move without fear, to act without permission, to create without apology. And ruthless wisdom is the path to that freedom. Not cruelty, not manipulation. Wisdom, the kind forged in fire, earned through mistakes, sharpened through observation, and wielded with precision. But here's the paradox: freedom isn't found in rebellion. It's not found in rejecting the world. It's found in understanding it so completely that you no longer fear it. You don't need to hide from its games because you know how to play them. You don't need to manipulate people because you understand their patterns. You don't need to dominate because you've already mastered yourself. This is the final rule smart people live by. Freedom is the reward of mastery, not the rejection of structure. And to master something, especially yourself, you must be ruthlessly honest about reality. What does that look like in practice? It means you see through illusions. You stop needing life to be fair and start dealing with it as it is. You stop waiting for people to change and start preparing for what they'll likely do. You stop outsourcing your emotional state to other people's opinions. You no longer seek safety in approval or identity in roles. You begin to choose your path with clarity, not reaction. And in doing so, you become unshakable, not because the world stops testing you, but because you stop flinching. Machiavelli believed that fortune is a river, sometimes calm, sometimes wild. You can't stop the flood, but you can build your foundation strong enough to endure it. That's what ruthless wisdom gives you. The ability to stand even when everything around you collapses. Not because you're cold, not because you don't care, but because you've seen the patterns. You've done the internal work. You've faced the discomfort most people run from. And now, you're no longer driven by fear. You're guided by insight. But this path also requires something most people avoid: radical responsibility. Once you see the game, you can't unsee it. Once you understand the rules, you can't pretend you don't know how to win. And that's where the weight comes in. Because now you're accountable not just for your choices, but for your awareness. You can't blame ignorance anymore. You can't pretend you didn't know better. And that's terrifying. But it's also liberating. Because the moment you take full ownership of your life, your mind, Your moves, that's the moment you become free. Fully. Finally. Ask yourself, what would your life look like if you stopped asking for freedom and started taking responsibility for it? What would happen if you stopped waiting for a better world and started becoming the kind of person who thrives in any world? Not by force, but by clarity. Not by dominance, but by depth. Because that's what ruthless wisdom is. It's not about hurting others. It's about refusing to be blind. And in the end, here's the most Machiavellian truth of all. The person who sees the world clearest, who plays the game without losing themselves, who adapts without becoming hollow, that person doesn't just stay ahead. They can't be caught, because their power isn't in status or wealth or control. It's in the freedom to choose who they are, in any situation, at any time, with or without anyone's permission. That's the ultimate rule. That's the final level. Master the game or be mastered by it. And the smart don't just play to win. They play to be free.